Hey you guys, Cool Robert here. Today in this video, you guys are going to get a special treat because I'm going to be showing you all the dinosaurs that I used in my movie, Prehistoric Island. Every dinosaur. So, let's get started. Let's get started with the first dinosaur you guys see in the movie, Pachycephalosaurus. Got two of them. This one is from a Jurassic World mini bag, and this is a finger puppet. So, Pachycephalosaur lived during the Cretaceous period, and is a member of dinosaurs that have hard heads, like Stygimoloch and Dracorex. So this Pachy, he's got a pretty good sculpt, like the lines on his head, and the spikes around him. His paint job looks pretty good. And it was made by Hasbro. And this one looks pretty good. Almost looks realistic. Doesn't have any paint in his mouth or teeth. But his sculpt is pretty good for the little spikes on his head. And also on his nose here. Eyes look pretty good. Like the wrinkles on his neck. So that's it for Pachycephalosaurus. Next up, we have one of the famous dinosaurs, Triceratops. So, here's a big one and a small one. And this small one was used for a size with the bigger dinosaurs like this guy. I don't know what company made this Triceratops, but it does have a pretty good sculpt. Like the spikes on his back. Nice sculpting on his skin. And the spikes on his frill. And the horns look pretty good. And his eyes look pretty good as well. So this guy is probably my favorite Triceratops toy. And this one, smaller. On this side, his eye looks grumpy, and on this side, his eye looks just okay. There are some parts of him that don't really look good, like his eyes and paint. But his sculpting is pretty good, like these bumps on his side. And his feet. And these wrinkles on his skin. It's pretty good. So that's it for Triceratops. Next up, we have the cousin of Triceratops, Styracosaurus. This toy is based on the Disney's dinosaur movie. It's got this thing on its back. Don't know what it's for. But its sculpting's pretty good. Like these big scales on its back and the wrinkles. Nice sculpting on his feet. So, Styracosaurus and Triceratops are in the same family of dinosaurs called ceratopsians. Styracosaurus has these long spikes on its frill, and it has a long horn, but this one doesn't have it, apparently. So, that's it for Styracosaurus. Next up, we have a dinosaur that I'm sure some of you are familiar with, Iguanodon. This one came from a vending machine that I won at an arcade place. And this one was from some coloring book that I got a few years ago. So Iguanodon is a dinosaur that also lived in the Cretaceous period. And it had these long spikes on its thumb. Or its thumb was a long spike. You get my point. So this Iguanodon's got a good sculpt. His skin looks pretty good. Doesn't have his eyes painted. The end of his tail is sort of chewed off. But, other than that, he looks pretty good. And this one, his skin looks pretty good. The wrinkles in it look pretty nice. And his feet and arms move. His face looks pretty nice. Not sure if you can see his thumb spikes. Well, I guess you can, but they're kind of small. And I do like the colors of this Iguanodon. Had a fly on my finger. So that's it for Iguanodon. Next up, we have the Stegosaurus. This guy lived in the Jurassic period. This Stegosaurus here was made by the company Schleich, which makes pretty good dinosaurs. He's got a nice face sculpt, like all the wrinkles on his skin. His plates look pretty nice. Nice sculpting on his tail. And his color looks pretty good. And here it tells you it was made by Schleich and it's a Stegosaurus. And I think this Stegosaurus came in that same coloring book as the Iguanodon from earlier. He's got nice wrinkles in his skin. His tail looks pretty good. Although his tail's raised down, well, it should be raised up. Because scientifically, the Stegosaurus tail is supposed to be raised up and not down like that. But no one's perfect. So that's it for Stegosaurus. Next up, we have one of my favorite dinosaurs, Parasaurolophus. Actually, it's pronounced Parasaurolophus, but I like to call it Parasaurolophus because that's how I've pronounced it since I was a kid. This dinosaur is one of my favorites because he has a unique design. He's got that crest on the back of his head. This one I've had for quite some time. He's got nice sculpting on his skin. He's got this little seam on him. Doesn't look like a real parasaur, but I like it. And also, he's a little bit squishy. And this one is also used for small scale, like the Stegosaur and Triceratops from earlier. I like his color scheme, looks pretty cool. And he looks kinda cute. Like these little lines on his underbelly. So, Parasaurolophus lived in the Cretaceous period. And it's a member of the Hadrosaur family, the group of dinosaurs with duck-shaped bills. Now I'll show you one of the carnivores of Prehistoric Island, the Carnotaurus. Another favorite dinosaur that I like. So this one is made by Schleich. He's got nice sculpting on his bony spikes along his body. Nice detail on his teeth. And the inside of his mouth looks pretty good. I like the blue eyes. He's got 3 fingers, but Carnotaurus has 4 fingers. So they got this one wrong. Carnotaurus is a member of dinosaurs like Majungasaurus and Rugobs. I like this dinosaur. If you remember, he appeared in the Disney dinosaur movie, but he was called Carnotaur instead of Carnotaurus. I don't know why. But that's it for Carnotaurus. Moving along. Now moving on to another fan favorite dinosaur, the Velociraptor. So let's start off with this guy. This raptor is made by Schleich. And he's got some pretty good sculpting. Looks just like the raptors from Jurassic Park. And this raptor looks pretty good. Smaller, but it's got good sculpting. Then we have Yellow Eyes, also made by Schleich. She's got nice sculpting and colors. Really like the colors on her, especially on her eyes, which is how she got her name. She can open her jaw and move her arms. And this raptor, this one's made by Papo. Looks like the raptors from Jurassic Park 3. Just doesn't have those spikes on its head. Papo also makes pretty good dinosaurs. I got 2 raptors that look just like this. And we have Gray, named for his gray underbelly. He's got nice coloring and sculpt. And his jaw is sort of sculpted weird. But maybe in the movie, it could be like some type of birth defect. I didn't bring Razor out because I couldn't find him. But I do have Red, who is my custom painted Velociraptor. If you're wondering why he looks a little shiny, it's because I covered him with the secret stuff just so his paint wouldn't chip off. And Red looks pretty good. And here we have smaller scaled raptors that I used for the battle scene with them and the Godzilla Soros. This one's sort of yellow eyes because it's green. And this one's Razor because he looks ferocious, and Razor's supposed to be ferocious. And spoiler alert, Razor will be returning in Prehistoric Island 2. Moving along, we have the vicious killing machine, Allosaurus. This guy lived during the Jurassic period and was the natural predator of Stegosaurus. So, just like the other raptors, the Stegosaur and Carnotaurus, this guy was made by Schleich. He's got an articulated jaw, and his skin looks pretty good. Really like the colors of this guy. And if you don't know, this Allosaurus is based on the one from Walking with Dinosaurs. If you haven't seen that show, you should check it out. It's pretty good. I watched that show back when I was a kid. It was pretty good. This one's another fan favorite, the Ankylosaurus, the dinosaur that's pretty much like an armored tank. So this one's made by those companies that make the little army men and dinosaurs and dragons. If you know what I'm talking about, then you understand. The sculpting on his armor looks pretty good. His face doesn't really look like a real Ankylosaur, but it does look pretty cool. His club looks nice. Well, it's a little bit small. And he's got little legs, just like Ankylosaurus does. So, on to the next dino. Edmontonia. This thing's not really an Edmontonia. I think it used to be an Ankylosaur. Oh yeah, it is. It says right there. But his tail was chewed off, so I decided to make him Edmontonia, which is a species of armored dinosaur like Ankylosaurus, but doesn't have a club. Instead, it has long spikes along its body that are very useful for defense against predators. So this guy's got pretty nice sculpting going on. I really like the colors of this one. This is a dark green color, and his underbelly is a peach color, almost like human skin. As you can see, my skin almost matches his underbelly. So in the movie, Edmontonia is a pretty cool dinosaur. Doesn't have the club like Ankylosaurus, but he has these spikes that are pretty useful. Moving up on the list, we have Brachiosaurus, another fan favorite dinosaur. Lived in the Jurassic period, and it was one of the biggest sauropods. And if you don't know, sauropods are the group of dinosaurs with long necks. So this Brachiosaur is based on the Disney dinosaur movie, just like the Styracosaur from earlier. It also has that weird thing that I really have no idea what it's for. If you guys know what this thing is supposed to do, comment down below. But the Brachiosaur does have pretty good sculpting in his skin. All these wrinkles along the legs. Nice sculpting on the feet. And the head sculpt looks pretty nice. I like this Brachiosaur. It's cool. So that's it for Brachiosaurus. Moving on. Okay, had to take a little break because all the talking made me thirsty. But I had some water, so now I'm good. Next up, we have Sauroposeidon. Toy is actually supposed to be a Brachiosaur, but in the movie, it's Sauroposeidon. So, Sauroposeidon is a dinosaur that's way bigger than Brachiosaurus. And Brachiosaurus was originally the biggest dinosaur until Sauroposeidon was discovered. So, Sauroposeidon shares similarities with Brachiosaurus, like their heads look similar, but it was way bigger. And it lived during the Cretaceous period, which was a long time ago. And this dinosaur has some nice sculpting in his skin. All the wrinkles in here. Nice sculpting on his toes. He's got a nice face sculpt. Like those lines on his nostrils. His mouth, teeth, and eyes look good. They didn't really paint it real good, but his sculpting's pretty good. And I like how they painted his eyes. I like the colorings of this guy. Orange and yellow. Then it fades into dark green on his neck. Next up, we have Pentaceratops, which is another ceratopsian like Triceratops and Styracosaurus. So, Pentaceratops has a head the size of a car, which makes it a pretty big dino. Just like Triceratops, they had the 3 horns, and they were pretty big as well. Imagine a T-Rex trying to fight one of these. And if you don't know, this is Pento from Tommy and Spyro. Thanks for coming in here, Pento. No problem. Like starring in your movie, by the way. Now I'm out of here. Next up, we have another ceratopsian, Protoceratops. Actually, this guy was a Styracosaurus, I think. But his horn here got bit off. So, Pentaceratops also lived in the Cretaceous period. I'm pretty sure every ceratopsian did. But Protoceratops was like a Triceratops that was really small and didn't have any horns at all. But they still had their head-butting skills. So this little guy's got some nice sculpting on his skin with all these bumps and this line on his back. He's got some nice sculpting on his frill. And you can see his little eyes there. Even though this isn't the actual Protoceratops, it did work good as a Protoceratops in my movie. I actually do have a Protoceratops, but it's like those squishy, rubbery dinosaurs. The reason I didn't use it in my film is because it couldn't stand up because of the rubber that it was made of. Next up, we have Megalosaurus. In the movie, it was the most aggressive dinosaur, and its DNA was used to make Godzilla Soros. So, he sort of played a... So, this dinosaur kind of played an important role in Prehistoric Island, mostly because his DNA was used in Godzilla Soros. But he did fight those other carnivores in that one scene, and he chased the others while they tried to escape. So, this guy's got some nice sculpting, like all these big thick scales on his back, and his color looks pretty good. His gray and yellow underbelly. Now get on to the next dinosaur. Okay, don't need to yell at me. Next up, we have Corythosaurus, which is in the same family as Parasaurolophus. This dinosaur shares similarity to Parasaur, like the duckbill, but this one doesn't have that. Well, I think it does when you turn it to this side. So, Corythosaurus has this crest on his head that kind of looks like the sail on Spinosaur. And it, too, lived in the Cretaceous period. He's got nice sculpting on his scales and wrinkles. And he's got a little bit of dust and dirt on him. And I think he also came in that color book that I got. Next up, we got Nanotyrannus. This guy's just a T-Rex figure, but in the movie he is Nanotyrannus. So if you don't know what Nanotyrannus is, it's basically a cousin of the T-Rex, but very small, like raptor size. And I don't mean like a real Velociraptor, like the raptors in Jurassic Park. My Utyrannus, or T-Rex figure, this guy's pretty good. Like the sculpting on his skin, and he's got like a smile on his face, which I kind of like because Nanotyrannus is a pretty sneaky dinosaur. They actually like killed baby T-Rexes just to get rid of the competition. I like the color of dark and light blue on this guy. So that's it for Nanotyrannus. Next up, we have Brontosaurus. Two dinos were made by different companies, but in the movie they're the same dinosaur. And an interesting fact, there's actually isn't a Brontosaur, just a Apatosaurus, which was in the movie. But in my movie, this dinosaur, these two are Brontosaurus. Just like the Brontosaurus from the movie King Kong, the 2005 film. So, this Brontosaur has nice colors, nice sculpting on his skin, like the lighter gray color right here on his sides, and on his head here. And I like this pose he's in, when his neck's sort of down and turning to this side. And this Brontosaur has his neck standing up all the way. And this one's pretty useful for sizing with other sauropods, like very big ones. Like the wrinkles on him, he's got like a dark gray color and skin color under his belly. I believe he was made by the same company that made this guy. So, next dinosaur. So, in the movie, Apatosaurus is Apatosaurus. So, Apatosaurus lived in the Jurassic period along with Brachiosaur, Allosaur, Dilophosaur, and Stegosaurus. It was a pretty big herbivore at its time. It ate a lot of plants, and its organs were so huge that its bones actually have small air holes in them, so it would be lighter. Interesting, right? So, this guy's got some nice sculpting on his skin with all these wrinkles. Of course, on this side you got the numbers, and it was made in China. But maybe I could paint over those numbers right there with some paint. But if you show it from this side, you won't notice the numbers. I also like the face sculpt of this guy. Looks pretty cool. So that's it for the Apatosaurus. Titanosaurus. This guy is also made by Schleich, but this is actually a Brachiosaur because it says so right here. Oh, upside down. Brachiosaurus. But this guy doesn't really look like a Brachiosaur. I mean, look at the head. Looks nothing like a Brachiosaurus. But it shares resemblance to the Titanosaurs from Prehistoric Park, which was a show on Animal Planet I watched. Let's show a little comparison. Yeah. It does look similar to the Titanosaurs from that show. So I decided to make it a Titanosaurus in the movie. I like the color on this guy. Dark brown on his head. And brown stripes along his back. Some spots right there and right here. He's got nice sculpting on his feet and claw toes. Pretty cool. This is one of my favorite dinosaurs in my collection. So, on to the next dinosaur. Compsognathus, or Compy for short. Compies are another dinosaur I really like. I'm not sure if this figure is an actual Compy, but in the movie he is. He's got nice sculpting on him. Like his color scheme. Really like this dino. He is pretty useful as a Compy in the movie. And just like the pink Iguanodon, small Stegosaur, he came with that color book that I got a few years ago. I'm pretty sure it came in that comic book. I mean color book. It's not a comic, it's a color book, you fool. Get your science and stuff right. So, let's move on to the next dino. Pretty sure you know this guy from Jurassic Park. The Dilophosaurus. So, this one's got the frill popping out. This one doesn't. But these two do serve a purpose in the movie. Because in that one scene, that guy was looking at the Dilophosaur, and he looked all innocent, like, oh. But then the next thing you know, he popped out his frill and became a savage killer. So with this figure, you just push this skinny frill on his back, and his arms move. Next up, we have the king of the dinosaurs, T-Rex. So, in the movie, there are 3 T-Rexes. Dash, Dash's brother Komodo, and Dash's girlfriend, Tina. In the movie, I used this one as Dash, who was breaking out of his enclosure. And Dash attacked the truck that had everyone in it. And the finger puppet was also Dash, even though it wasn't the same color. The finger puppet's got some nice sculpting on it. This T-Rex came in a 2-pack with a Spinosaurus. It's got some nice sculpting on it. Although I don't like these things on his feet. Or her. Because in the movie it was a her. Don't like the sculpting on its teeth. Her arms look longer than they should be. But the one thing I do like about this T-Rex is the green eyes. Green eyes really get me. This one is Dash, the main T-Rex of Prehistoric Island. It's pretty cool. I've had this T-Rex for quite a long time. And if you guys seen my video from a few days ago, I repainted his eyes. And here we have Komodo the T-Rex. If you guys can tell, this T-Rex was made by the same company that made the Raptor that played as Razor. I think these were made by Mattel. Yeah, Mattel made these dinosaurs. They were part of this series where you mix different dinosaurs together to make like a hybrid. Got these things on them that you use this DNA extractor for. Though it doesn't look like a real T-Rex, I did use it in my movie. If you remember, he killed that one guy in a very brutal way. You just rah! And then you just see blood going everywhere. Now we have Spinosaurus, one of my favorite dinosaurs. So this one's made by a company called Jaru. I think that's how it's pronounced. I've had this guy for quite a while. I really like the Spinosaur. Like how this side of his face is orangey red, and this side's yellow. It's pretty cool. And he's in the cool pose where his tail's just curling, and he's like, rah! Next up is Baryonyx, the cousin of Spinosaurus. I didn't really have a Baryonyx figure, but I put this green silly putty on his sail, so he'd look like a Baryonyx. But, unfortunately, I didn't count that the green on the silly putty and his skin right here would, well, green screen. So it kind of made him look weird. But I'm pretty sure you guys knew it was supposed to be a Baryonyx, because he didn't have his sail. And there was also that one scene where I used him as a Baryonyx. One shot you just saw this part of the Carnotaurus body. And then another shot you saw him, but he was supposed to be a Baryonyx. Next up, we have another favorite dinosaur. Well, my favorite. The Gigantosaurus. In the movie, he was called Gigantasaurus. I like to call this guy Gigantosaurus because of how big he is. But he's Gigantosaurus. I think it says it right here on him. Yeah. This guy is made by Schleich. And he has the articulated jaw. So this is the dinosaur that fought Godzilla Soros at the end of the movie. Sure, fall over, why don't you? No laying down on a job. So I really like the color and sculpt of this guy. I like his black eyes. They're pretty cool. So, let's go on to the next dinosaur. I saved the best for last. The hybrid Godzilla Soros. The hybrid of Prehistoric Island. So, this guy used to be a Ceratosaurus toy, but I repainted him to be Godzillasaurus. And I also used this small dinosaur puppet toy, some T-Rex thing, as the head of Godzilla Soros. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, you guys, I looked all over the house and I couldn't find a thing. But here's some footage of it from the movie. So, it had those little wrinkles on the back of its head. It's got white teeth, and I actually colored its eyes red with a Sharpie. And it's also got those like yellowish orange lines on its head. And I also drew a little picture of Godzilla Soros. So, its head sort of looks like the custom, but it has those wrinkles on the back like the small black T-Rex. It's got those spines on its back. And its tail sort of looks like how legendary Goji's tail looked. Because in some shots I used the legendary Godzilla. So, what do you think of my little picture of Godzilla Soros? And that's supposed to be how it looked as a baby, and there's its egg. So, let me know in the comments below which dinosaur I showed you was your favorite, and which one you thought were cool. So I'll see you guys in the next video.